I can't remember a single moment in my childhood when I felt like a daughter. Not truly. The memories that most people describe, warm hugs, bedtime stories, parents cheering at school events, those moments exist in my mind the way fairy tales do. Pretty. Soft. And belonging to other children, not me. My earliest memories are of chores. I was 6 the first time my mother taught me how to scrub the kitchen floors. 6. My hands were tiny, my knees bruised from the hard tiles, and I remember looking up at her, hoping she would tell me she was only joking, that I could go outside and play with the neighborhood kids. Instead, she pressed a wet rag into my palm and said, "Stop daydreaming. You're making the house look lazy." The house. Not her. Not me. The house was the one that looked lazy. At 9, I had mastered folding laundry the way she demanded, tight, crisp stacks, organized by color and then by fabric. When I didn't get it right, she didn't yell. Sometimes I wished she would. Instead, she gave me that disappointed, almost disgusted look that made my stomach twist. "You can't do anything correctly unless Emily is standing next to you," she would mutter, shaking her head. Emily. My older sister. Their son, their pride, their everything. She was never asked to do chores, because she was busy with school, even when she spent hours texting or painting her nails. If she took her plate to the sink, Mom treated it like a grand act of kindness. "Oh honey, thank you. See, you're responsible. Unlike your sister." I was standing right there, of course. I always was. Silent. Invisible. Dad wasn't much better. He didn't insult me, but he didn't see me either. He'd come home from work, loosen his tie, sit at the table, and expect dinner to appear in front of him, made by me. If it wasn't ready, he didn't speak, he just sighed loudly, the kind of sigh that felt like a failure settling over my shoulders. "You know your mother works hard," he'd say. "You should be more helpful." Helpful. A word that sounded innocent but cut like a knife. By age 13, holidays had become my personal battleground. While Emily went ice skating with friends, I was peeling potatoes in the kitchen. While she decorated the Christmas tree with pretty bows and shiny ornaments, I stood behind her picking up the glitter, sweeping the needles, adjusting things the way Mom wanted but didn't bother to explain to Emily. "Don't make a face," Mom would whisper sharply when guests arrived. "Nobody wants to see your attitude." My attitude. My exhaustion. My humanity. All hidden behind a smile. It wasn't that my parents hated me, they just valued what I did more than who I was. If I stayed quiet, worked hard, and didn't want anything, then everything was fine. But deep down, I was lonely. I watched other girls get picked up from school by parents who hugged them, asked about their day, brought them hot chocolate on cold afternoons. Meanwhile, if I asked for something as simple as new gloves, Mom rolled her eyes. "Why do you always need something? You're so high maintenance." High maintenance. Me. The girl who patched her own socks because she didn't want to bother anyone. But the truth? I wasn't high maintenance. I was cracking. Slowly. Quietly. In places no one could see. As I grew older, the responsibilities didn't fade, they multiplied. College didn't free me. Money was tight, they said. It made sense to stay home to help out. Help out. Another phrase that shackled me without chains. By the time I turned 23, I had spent more years serving my family than living my own life. Every Christmas, every holiday, every moment that should have felt magical was nothing but work. But that year, one day before Christmas, everything changed. And it started with one sentence that shattered whatever obedience I had left. "It's only 25 people." My mother said it casually. But she had no idea those 4 words would be the beginning of my freedom. The day before Christmas always used to carry a quiet kind of dread for me. Not because I disliked the holiday, no, I actually loved the idea of Christmas. The lights, the music, the warmth. The problem was that the version I lived wasn't warm at all. It was cold, frantic, and built on my exhaustion. That particular December 24th felt no different at first. I walked into the house after a long shift, my clothes smelling faintly of the coffee shop where I worked. My fingers were numb from the cold, but my head was hot from stress. I had finals coming up after break, and all I wanted was a night to rest. Just one night. The smell of cinnamon candles hit me before I even took off my scarf. Mom loved to make the house look festive, but it was me who had to maintain the illusion, cleaning wax strips, vacuuming stray tinsel, rewashing the good plates she only used once a year. I heard her heels clicking before I saw her. Sharp, purposeful, commanding. "Oh good, you're home." She didn't look up from icing a tray of cookies. "We have a lot to prepare." Prepare. Such a simple word, but one that made my stomach twist. I swallowed. Prepare for what? That's when she paused. Not dramatically, but with the absolute confidence of someone who assumed I already knew my place. "Your sister's friends are spending Christmas here this year," she said, finally meeting my eyes. "They want a cozy, traditional holiday. Homemade food, warm atmosphere, the works." Then she smiled, smirked, and set the icing bag down. "It's only 25 people." Only 25. My skin tingled like I'd been slapped. "Mom, 25? That's not a dinner, that's an event." "And?" She shrugged, waving her hand dismissively. "You've handled more than that during graduation weekend." A memory flashed across my mind, me, 18 years old, sweating over a stove while Dad entertained 20 guests outside, Emily laughing with her friends like she lived in a princess movie. Nobody even asked if I had eaten. I breathed in slowly. "I have work tomorrow morning." "You can call out," Mom said immediately. "This is more important. More important than my job. More important than my schedule. More important than me." I blinked. "Who's helping me?" She looked genuinely confused. "Helping you? Why would anyone help you?" "Emily has to entertain. Your father will be busy greeting people. You're better in the kitchen anyway." Better in the kitchen. I felt something inside me shift, quietly, dangerously. "Mom," I said softly, "this isn't fair." Her eyes hardened. "Don't start. Every family works together for the holidays. Stop making everything dramatic." But I wasn't being dramatic. She was asking me to cook, clean, serve, and manage a holiday for 24 strangers like a staff of one. And she didn't even acknowledge it. For a moment, I considered arguing. Telling her I wouldn't do it. Telling her I was tired. Telling her I needed a break. But I knew how that would go. Accusations. Guilt trips. Her favorite line, "You're ungrateful." So instead, I did something that startled even me. I smiled. A calm, slow, unsettling smile. Mom squinted. "What are you smiling about?" "Nothing," I said gently. "I'll take care of it." And she believed me. She turned back to her cookies, humming a Christmas tune, completely unaware that the daughter she thought she controlled had already crossed a line in her mind. I walked upstairs without rushing. Closed my bedroom door without a sound. Sat on my bed and stared at the wall. I wasn't angry. I wasn't crying. I was done. Done being used. Done being the family servant. Done being invisible. With a strange sense of peace, I opened my laptop and typed. Last-minute flights to Florida. My hand shook, not from fear, but from relief, as I booked a seat on the earliest Christmas morning flight. 5:10 a.m. Non-stop. A window seat. My escape route. Then I packed. A small suitcase. Comfortable clothes. My journal. The bare essentials, everything I'd need to feel like a person for once. Before closing my laptop, I scheduled a message to send to my family at noon the next day. The message that would flip their perfect Christmas upside down. When I zipped my suitcase shut, I felt lighter than I had in years. Mom's 25 people demand didn't break me. It freed me. Because that night, I finally made a decision. I wasn't spending another Christmas as their servant. I was choosing myself. Christmas morning started with a silence I wasn't used to. Normally, by dawn, Mom would already be banging pots in the kitchen and shouting instructions from room to room. I would usually wake to the sound of chaos, water running, drawers slamming, the hiss of the oven, the thick smell of turkey already roasting. But on this Christmas morning? I was sitting in a quiet airport, sipping warm coffee, watching the sky shift from deep navy to soft gold. I kept checking the time, not out of worry, but out of disbelief. Was I really doing this? Was I really free? My phone buzzed for the first time around 7:18 a.m. Mom, where are you? We need you down here. Now. I smiled to myself and turned the phone face down. The boarding call echoed through the terminal like a hymn. Flight 223 to Tampa is now boarding. I stood up, walked toward the gate, and didn't look back. Back at the house, I imagined exactly what was happening. Mom would march into the kitchen expecting counters filled with chopped vegetables, marinated meats, neatly arranged appetizers, but instead, she'd find a cold, empty space. No pots simmering. No timers beeping. No me rushing around like a frantic elf. Dad would check the fridge for prepped dishes, only to find a sad collection of eggs, condiments, and leftovers. Emily would panic because her 25 friends were expecting a cozy, Instagram-worthy Christmas feast. I knew my family well enough to picture it with complete clarity. By the time my plane took off, smooth, gentle, almost poetic, the unraveling had begun. Mom called again. Then again. Then again. I didn't answer any of them. I put my phone into airplane mode and looked out the window as snow-covered rooftops shrank beneath us. For once, I wasn't serving anyone. I wasn't responsible for anyone's happiness. I wasn't running. I was floating, literally and emotionally. At 10 a.m., I imagined Dad attempting to help. Which meant opening every cabinet, searching for a missing sense of competence, and probably burning himself on the stove within 15 minutes. Emily, I knew, would be pacing in the living room while friends arrived, each one more confused than the last. Where's the food? Didn't your family host every year? Nothing's ready? Her perfect image, her curated, social media-ready facade, was cracking right in front of her guests. And Mom? Mom would be unraveling. Fury first. Then confusion. Then fear. Because she wasn't used to being embarrassed. She was the queen of holiday hosting, the woman who bragged about her perfect home and her well-behaved daughters. The illusion mattered to her more than we ever did. So as minutes ticked by and nothing magically cooked itself, humiliation settled into her bones. At exactly noon, as planned, my scheduled message delivered itself to every phone in the house. A cheerful opening. Merry Christmas. Then the truth. I'm not home because I'm done being your servant. Done being unappreciated. Done being the one person who makes everything run while being treated like nothing. I've left for the holidays, and maybe longer. Enjoy your Christmas. Just as you made me enjoy mine. I didn't have to be there to imagine the silence that followed. Mom's face going pale. Emily covering her mouth. Dad blinking, struggling to comprehend what he'd just read. 25 guests awkwardly pretending not to watch the family meltdown happening in real time. It was the first time in my life that they felt the shock, the panic, the pressure, the things I felt every holiday for years. And I wasn't there to cushion it for them. As my plane descended toward Florida, the clouds parted to reveal turquoise water and sunlit beaches. It felt like the world was welcoming me, saying, "You made it. You're allowed to choose yourself. You're finally free." I stepped off the plane with a lightness I didn't recognize. A feeling of possibility. And behind me, hundreds of miles away, the house I grew up in was experiencing its first Christmas without me. Its first imperfect Christmas. Its first real one. I landed in Florida just as the morning sun stretched over the horizon, spilling gold and pink across the ocean. The warmth hit my skin like a promise, a whisper that the world was bigger than the house I had left behind. For the first time in years, I could breathe without guilt, without expectation, without the invisible chains that had wrapped around me every Christmas morning of my life. I took a deep breath and stepped out of the airport, suitcase in hand, and the salty breeze kissed my face. The world smelled different here, salty, sun-warmed, and free. I hailed a cab to a small hotel near the beach, feeling a thrill I hadn't felt in decades. Every passing palm tree, every laugh of children running along the sand, felt like a reminder that I had chosen this moment. That I had finally chosen myself. I checked into my room, dropped my suitcase, and walked straight onto the balcony. The horizon stretched endlessly before me. The waves crashed with a rhythm I could almost sync my heartbeat to. I closed my eyes and let the sound wash over me, feeling for the first time that the past, every exhausting, thankless task, every tear, every moment of being invisible, was finally behind me. The real surprise wasn't just that I was gone. It was the message I had scheduled to reach my parents, Emily, and the 25 friends who had come to our home, expecting a Christmas feast they would never get. Merry Christmas. I'm not home because I'm done being your servant. Done being unappreciated. Done being the one person who makes everything run while being treated like nothing. I've left for the holidays, and maybe longer. Enjoy your Christmas, just as you made me enjoy mine. I imagined the silence that fell over the house when they read it. Mom, panic blooming in her chest as she realized the person who had orchestrated everything for 25 people was gone. Emily, her smile fading as she looked around at confused, hungry friends. Dad, struggling to process the truth that he couldn't fix this with a sigh or a raised voice. And the guests, wide-eyed, realizing that the perfect holiday their hosts had promised was a complete illusion. It was beautiful. But I had another surprise tucked away, something bigger. I had accepted a job 3 states away, a position that promised not only independence but growth, purpose, and the life I had always dreamed of but never allowed myself to pursue. The apartment I rented was tiny, yes, but it belonged to me. Everything inside it was mine. For the first time, the only person I had to answer to was myself. I sent them a final note. I'm not coming home. Not today, not tomorrow, not ever as your servant. I deserve a life. And I'm finally living it. And then I put my phone away. For the first time in my life, I didn't wait for someone else's happiness. I didn't scrub floors or polish silver or prepare meals that I would never eat. I didn't apologize for existing. I had Christmas morning all to myself. I walked barefoot along the beach, letting the sand seep between my toes. I watched the waves tumble and roll, the sunlight glittering on the water like a million tiny stars. I listened to children laugh and seagulls cry, and I allowed myself to feel something I hadn't allowed in years, joy. Real joy, unfiltered, and unapologetic. Somewhere back home, I imagined Mom staring at an empty kitchen, muttering curses under her breath. Dad, frantic, realizing that their perfect holiday had fallen apart. Emily, panicked, wondering why I had finally decided to leave. And I smiled because this wasn't cruelty. This was freedom. This was justice. And as I stood there, wind tangling my hair, salt drying on my skin, I understood something profound. The holidays had never been about perfection, or service, or pleasing others. They had always been about love, love I had never been allowed to receive, until now. I had taken myself. My joy. My time. My life. And that was the greatest gift I could have ever received. I sipped my coffee, letting the warmth fill me, and watched the sun climb higher. For the first time, Christmas wasn't a burden. It was a beginning. A beginning where I mattered. Where I was seen. Where I was free. And I promised myself, silently, that no matter what happened next, I would never go back to being invisible again.